Just when you thought the Eagles' offensive coordinator search was falling apart, things have taken a surprising turn, as one of the Birds' top candidates that we thought was ruled out actually isn't off the table just yet. Meanwhile, Philly's other options are starting to look a lot more exciting. So in this video, I'll break down why you should be optimistic about the Eagles' OC search, the great options that are still available, and the potential ripple effects of Christian Parker's departure to Dallas. So let's talk about all that and more starting right now. Hey guys, so I think we're pretty much all in agreement at this point that we are getting sick and tired of this offensive coordinator search. I mean, it has dragged on way longer than I'm sure many of us thought that it would, and it hasn't exactly gone according to plan. I mean, you would think that with an offense that has as much talent as the Eagles have and literally just put up 40 points in the Super Bowl, 11 months ago? This job would be drawing more interest than it is, but for whatever reason, whether it's the lack of continuity at that position or the uncertainty with A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Lane Johnson, or it's just the pressure that comes with being the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, we've seen the top candidates continue to choose other destinations rather than Philly. And Philly Mike actually made a great point on Twitter, noting that as opposed to some of these other jobs, anything less than winning a Super Bowl or at the very least making the NFC Championship would be considered a failure in Philly. So again, that pressure is just not for everybody. But the good news is the Eagles now have hope after a surprising turn of events. And it all starts with a recent report from ESPN's Jermey Fowler, as he and Ben Solak just put out an article ranking the best open coordinator jobs in the NFL right now, and when discussing Philly's OC vacancy, Fowler wrote, quote, "Philly's search has been all over the map, and the team is still submitting requests for interviews. I'm not totally convinced that former Giants head coach Brian Daboll is off the table, though there's not much there at the moment. Chicago offensive coordinator Declan Doyle is a name to watch. The Bears did not block Philly's request to interview Doyle, which means that he's free to make the lateral move. Some see him as head coach material, and this job can be a springboard if the new play caller improves Hurts' performance." So obviously, there's a lot to break down there, but let's start with the comments on Daboll. Because of course, at the start of the Eagles' offensive coordinator search, Daboll was considered one of the top targets, along with Mike McDaniel, maybe the top target. That is, until it was reported that either he was going to become the next head coach of the Bills, if that was an option for him, or if he didn't get that job, then he was expected to become the next offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans under Robert Saleh, which that's a surprise in itself. But with that report, I think we all pretty much assumed that there was no virtual chance that Daboll would end up in Philly anymore. But now, again, that has changed, because Fowler said, quote, "I'm not totally convinced that Brian Daboll is off the table." So, number one, again, I've said it before, I think Brian Daboll would be a great fit in Philadelphia. He's a guy that has a ton of experience calling plays. He knows how to run an offense. He's been in the league for a long time in multiple different positions, whether it's offensive coordinator, head coach, whatever. But he would come in here, have a ton of authority. There's already been reports saying the Eagles would give him full control of the offense, and he would build this offense around Jalen Hurts and his strengths and just put him in the best positions to succeed. And I think he would bring that shake-up on offense that the Eagles so desperately need. So again, I think it would be a great option if the Eagles could land Daboll. Now, am I optimistic about it? No. I mean, I'm not going to get my hopes up because Fowler also did say that there hasn't been much buzz there recently. But what we do know is that the Eagles did interview him earlier this week, and my guess is that the ball is firmly in his court. I mean, if he wants to come to the Eagles, if that's the decision that he ultimately makes, which, again, I'm not getting my hopes up about that, but I'm sure the Eagles would be more than happy to offer him the job. It's just up to whether he wants to do it or not. Or who knows, maybe I'm wrong and the Eagles just want to interview more guys, but that's the sense that I get right now. So again, not getting my hopes up, but don't rule out Brian Daboll to Philly just yet. But now we get to the other part of that article, which is that, as Fowler said, the Bears did not block the Eagles' request to interview Declan Doyle, which that's more great news because the more and more I think about it, the more I absolutely love the idea of Declan Doyle as the Eagles' next offensive coordinator. Excuse the voice crack. Now, yes, he would be a big risk. He's only 28 years old. He's obviously very inexperienced, given that he's only spent 1 year as an offensive coordinator, and he's never called plays before. However, he's worked under some great offensive minds in Ben Johnson and Sean Payton. He had a major role this past season in helping create the Bears offense, which obviously they looked amazing at times. And, they were very, very creative and had so many different elements that I would love to see the Eagles use. And he's also very well respected and talked of very, very highly. I mean, like Fowler said, he's someone who is thought to be a potential head coach one day. And Bears GM Ryan Poles and head coach Ben Johnson had some crazy high praise for Doyle when they brought him in last offseason.
The volume that he can handle, I mean, I was joking with him the other day. I don't know if I've ever seen a coach do more evaluations, and actually it's quality work. It's just really impressive. He can just do so much. You can see why that combination with Ben is going to be special.
He and I are a match made in heaven. He thinks very much like me. Extremely detailed, extremely organized. The age does not matter.
The one concerning thing about Doyle is 100% the inexperience. Like, I could care less about his age. That doesn't really matter to me. What does matter is that he hasn't called plays. So, obviously, it's a huge risk if the Eagles were to hire him. However, everything else about Doyle gets me fired up, and there's reasons to think that he would be a very good play caller. I mean, Ben Johnson himself said that he very much thinks like him. They think in similar ways. And again, he's worked under some great offensive minds that have helped to shape his offensive philosophy and style. So he would just bring so many new ideas and so many new concepts to this Eagles offense that desperately needs a major shakeup.
It's hard to extrapolate what is Ben Johnson and what would be an offense led by Declan Doyle here, but they're top 5 in play action. They're top 5 in under center usage. They're top 5 in play 13 personnel usage. For me, these are the elements of a modern offense. You're going to get, play action heavy, outside zone heavy. I mean, we saw what the run game looked like against the Eagles. Now, again, I think that Ben Johnson is the author of that scheme, but getting somebody from that potential tree, I do think that that's really interesting. So if you can do the legwork, if you feel good about how he can command a room, how he can install an offense, and the vision for what he wants to do with the personnel that the Eagles have in place, I think it would make total sense.
I completely agree with E.J. Smith there. Like, again, not having called plays, that is a concern, but if it weren't for that, I think I'd be all the way on the Declan Doyle hype train at this point. So I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below about Doyle and if you think he would be a good OC. Moving on though, there's also another realistic candidate that I'm pretty excited about, that being Bobby Slowik. And after it was reported earlier this week that the Birds had interest in interviewing him, it officially happened on Friday. So that's good news. And like Doyle, Slowik is someone that continues to grow on me. And as opposed to the young Bears OC, he's probably a much safer bet. Now, there are still risks, right? Like, he really only had that one great year in Houston back in 2023. The next year after that wasn't as good. And then this past season, he was the Dolphins pass game coordinator. Not much success there either. So, again, very much inconsistent, and he hasn't had too many years' experience as an offensive coordinator. But he comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. He would bring a lot of those same West Coast concepts to this Eagles offense and would just bring that shakeup that the Eagles desperately need. Again, the Eagles need to make significant changes, and Slowik is someone who would bring so many new ideas and concepts, and he would just make things easier on Jalen Hurts and also help his development by introducing new things and new concepts and new ideas, right? Like, just look at that one amazing year that he had back in 2023 in Houston with a rookie C.J. Stroud. Like, yes, Stroud was balling that year. He looked amazing, but since then, he hasn't looked nearly the same, and he was a rookie. So the fact that Slowik was able to have that much success in that one season with Stroud, like, that's impressive. And if you can have success in that situation, I'm pretty confident that he can have success with the seasoned veteran Jalen Hurts, who's been to multiple Super Bowls and has weapons. So again, the idea of Bobby Slowik coming to Philly is growing on me more and more. And also shout out to Top Billin, because he did this film breakdown that I'm going to play a little snippet of. And I think it shows you the potential of this Eagles offense if Bobby Slowik was in charge.
He's going to be running kind of a shallow crosser. So you can see the flood concept working right here. You can read this deep to short. We can see what C.J. Stroud, right, who's a rookie at this time. Ball in the belly of the beast, turn around, no rhythm pat needed, boom. Look at this backside ISO run deletion. Check this out. Nope, give me that jocker. Come on, man. This should be in everyone's playbook right here. This is just too easy. FIB, formation into the boundary. We see trips here into the boundary. You're going to get a post route here by the slot receiver. Look at this. You're going to get a stuggo, right? He's going to chop it down and going to go with that bad boy here. This is the money shot there. You get the tight end working to the flat. You also get kind of a shallow crosser here by the backside ISO receiver, Nico Collins. And right behind him, kind of in a vapor trail, is the running back. So there's a lot of different ways to go with this. That's why I think it's user-friendly, because the more options that you have, or the more options you have to exhaust, the better chance you give yourself. But watch this drawing right here. No play action needed. Look at that. Shoulder fake, and then shock him.
Again, this is all stuff that the Eagles just haven't done enough of in recent years, and they desperately need that shakeup on offense. So, again, Bobby Slowik is somebody who I very much am getting more and more optimistic about. and I think he would be a great fit. But I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on that. And, I understand why people were, disappointed with the Eagles' offensive coordinator search, and it stinks to lose out on some of these top guys like a Mike McDaniel, for example. Brian Daboll, we still don't know what's going to happen, but, for these other candidates like a Bobby Slowik and a Declan Doyle, I'm starting to feel a little bit more optimistic about this Eagles offensive coordinator search. There are still very much good options out there, and one of those is Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who I think the odds of him ending up in Philly just slightly went up as well, considering that the Baltimore Ravens made their head coaching hire, that being Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, meaning that Brady isn't going to end up getting that job, and he was a finalist for the position. So, he's still available, and probably his most desired position is off the board. So maybe that opens up an opportunity for the Eagles to go out and bring him in as their next OC. Now, he still very much is going to have other opportunities. There's still other head coaching jobs available. There's offensive coordinator jobs available that are still desirable, like the Ravens, for example. He's expected to be in the running for that. But, again, the Eagles, they have an opportunity here, and I think Joe Brady would be a fantastic fit with them. He would get a ton out of Jalen Hurts, and he would just really revitalize this offense and help get it back to that elite level that, we know they can be at. So I don't think it's super likely, but if there's even a small chance that the Eagles can land him, they need to go and be as aggressive as possible, and at least try and get him in here for an interview. And as of right now, of the current remaining available options, Joe Brady would be my number one. Now, someone I wouldn't want is Matt Nagy, and actually, he just officially parted ways with the Kansas City Chiefs on Friday. So, I think it's pretty telling that he was fired from that Chiefs job, considering that, they have Patrick Mahomes leading that unit, and they got, Travis Kelce. They've had explosive offenses in the past, and ever since Nagy took over as the OC, I think back in 2023, they haven't been nearly as explosive. So, again, I think it's pretty telling, the fall off there with Nagy in charge. Plus the fact that they've now let him go and replaced him with the guy who used to have that job in Eric Bieniemy. It's just not a good look for Nagy. So again, I definitely do not want him as the Eagles' next offensive coordinator. Now, I do like the experience that he brings. So if the Eagles were to maybe bring him on staff in another role to help support, say, a younger offensive coordinator like Declan Doyle, I think that would be a good move. But I definitely do not want him calling plays. I don't think he's the worst remaining candidate available, but I definitely don't want him as the Eagles' next offensive coordinator. Now, someone I would want back is former Eagles defensive backs coach Dennard Wilson, because of course the Eagles have a new position that they have to fill with Christian Parker leaving for Dallas, and Wilson's now available after the Titans announced that they would not retain him as their defensive coordinator. And if you'll remember back to 2022, when the Eagles had the number one pass defense in all of football, and Darius Slay and James Bradberry were balling out, Bradberry had an all-pro season that year, Wilson was the defensive backs coach, so a reunion would make a ton of sense if both sides were interested. The problem, though, is that things ended messy in Philadelphia, as Wilson was disappointed back in the 2023 offseason that Nick Sirianni overlooked him for the defensive coordinator job. Sean Desai got it, and it seems that, Wilson wanted to stay, but Sirianni just, for whatever reason, thought that he wouldn't work well with Sean Desai, so he pushed him out and fired him, which, if that's true, why would you do that, Nick? I've been trying to defend you these past few days, but this is something that, if this is true, I don't understand. But, regardless, maybe we don't know the full story. And if reconciliation between the two sides is possible and a reunion is possible, then I would love to have Wilson back. But, more likely than not, that's unrealistic. And then I think the most logical option from there seems to be the Eagles' safety coach, Joe Kasper. He's been in Philly now for 3 years. He was here in 2021, then left for a couple years, and then he's been back the past 2 years in 2024 and 2025. He seems to be very well liked by the players, very well respected in the organization, very well liked by Vic Fangio because he's been under him the past 3 years, both in Miami in 2023 and then followed him to Philly the past 2 seasons. So, Kasper makes the most sense to me, 100%, but as Anthony DeBona pointed out, there are also other candidates as well, such as Eagles cornerbacks coach Roy Anderson, or there are also external candidates too. So we'll see how it plays out and who the Eagles are reportedly interested in. Either way, though, it still really sucks to lose Christian Parker to Dallas of all places. And another angle of that is that the Eagles are going to have to worry about now him potentially trying to poach some of the Birds' current free agents on defense. For example, Nakobe Dean and Reed Blankenship are set to hit the open market this spring, and a lot of people seem to think that it would make sense for them to follow Parker to Dallas, which, if that happened, that would already make a nightmare scenario for the Eagles even worse. Yes, both Nakobe and Reed very much have their faults as players, and Blankenship specifically, I don't think had the best season. But they're good players at the end of the day, and they're also both really good leaders. So to lose them both to a division rival in the Dallas Cowboys would be absolutely horrible, and again, an absolute nightmare. But that is just speculation, and there's also a lot more to talk about when it comes to Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship, and the Eagles' upcoming free agency in general, because they got a ton of massive decisions to make coming up this spring. And I'm going to talk much more in depth about the Eagles' upcoming free agency in a future video. So if you guys don't want to miss that or any other Eagles coverage coming throughout this entire offseason, then make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications. And also drop a like down below on this video to show some support. It really does help me out so much, guys. See if we can get to at least 500 likes today. And also hit the hype button because that really does help me out a ton as well. And leave a comment just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you do want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.